Hi, I'm Rashonda. I'm the creator of artbyrow.com, where you can find over 200 art and drawing tutorials and everything art related. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to head on over to the art studio and do some drawings. I hope you'll grab a pencil and some paper and draw along with us today. I know you'll have fun. Let's head on over to the studio. Today we are going to be drawing some tiki masks. These are so much fun. There's a ton of variation that you can get with them. So many different ways you can draw them out. So like usual, the first thing I like to do is to lay down some guides. And one of the things is that I need to know where the center of my paper is. So I'm just going to divide it. And that just helps me with the symmetry. So I can get the symmetry and I can find out where I want my elements of the face to go. So if you're not familiar with the tiki mask, which I'm assuming you are since you're watching this video, they're basically a crazy face carved out of wood. We're just going to draw them today, but we need to know where these elements are going to go on our paper. So I'm going to start by drawing the brow line. And we want to keep it as symmetrical as possible, which it's not going to be 100% symmetrical, and that's okay. We're just going to do the best we can. I think having fun with your artwork is more important than things being perfect all the time. So I like to encourage people to focus more on the enjoyment they're getting out of it, rather than being just so uptight about everything turning out exactly perfect. So we do the best we can, try to improve every day, and then just make sure we're enjoying what we're doing, because creating art is supposed to be enjoyable. It should not stress us out more. So make sure you're having some fun. So now I got the brow line, I got the nose, and then I'm going to do the mouth next. And I'm going to start with the upper lip part of it. And you want to keep in mind that, again, these are carved into wood. So your lines are going to be a little more flowing, I guess you could say, than something that wouldn't be carved out of wood. I'm going to add some teeth in here. And again, you can do these just so many different ways that you can do the mouths, the eyes, the nose. There's a lot of different styles of tiki masks. So I'm just showing you one way to draw these today. You can put teeth, not put teeth. You could have big teeth. Your teeth could be closer together. You could have a tongue hanging out of the mouth. This is one of those drawings that there's just so many different ways to do it, and you can have so much fun with it. So now I'm just going to add some teeth to the bottom. Now for the teeth, I am not worrying about keeping them symmetrical. The teeth aren't even like the rest of it is. And also keep in mind that the tikis, they curve around. They're typically in a cylinder type shape, and then they would curve around to the sides. So don't be afraid to let it come off the edge a little bit. We could make a tongue in here if we wanted. So that's it for the mouth. We got the nose. The nose is done. And then the other thing is to add in the eyes. Now for the eyes, we could just leave it as is. Sometimes they don't have actual eyeball looking elements in them. But we're going to go ahead and draw these in. And then the eyes, you do want to keep symmetrical, which means they're a mirror image of each other, which is not always easy to do. So like I said, just do the best you can. They're not going to be perfect. I'm sure they're not perfect in real life as well. So you just want to eyeball it. Do the best you can to keep everything symmetrical. Move that blotter out of the way. So that's it for the drawing part of it. And then the next thing we're going to do is outline it and see about adding some color, whether that's just going to be brown or if we're going to add some other colors. So I'm going to grab a outlining pen, and then I will be back. Yeah, I normally do my outlines in black, but I'm going to try something different today. I have a brown, this is a Pitt Artist pen. I typically outline with pens instead of markers because you get a crisper edge with a pen. The markers tend to bleed into the paper a little bit more. So like I said, typically I would do this with black. But I decided to try something different from what I normally do today. So we're going to do this with brown. And the process is the same whether you use black or brown or any other color. We're just going to go over the pencil lines that we're keeping. So if you made any mistakes or something you don't like, now's the time to change your mind on it. You can still make corrections. So I'm just literally just tracing over top of my pencil lines that I have here. And then what we can do after that is take a big eraser and just go right over top of the entire drawing and get rid of all those extra pencil lines, erase those guides that we drew right at the very beginning of this. Clean it up before we add marker. You do want to make sure you erase the pencil lines before adding the marker, because anywhere that your marker is not darker than your pencil lines, you're going to see those. And usually once you put marker over top of it, it kind of seals it in and it makes it hard to get rid of them and make it to where you don't notice they're there. So I'm literally just going right over top of the pencil lines. Or like down here, I didn't want the tongue to be even with where the teeth are at, so I brought that down a little bit. Like I said, make your corrections while you're doing your outline if you need to, make any small adjustments. So I'm just taking this eraser. You can use a pink eraser, it doesn't really matter. And I'm literally just going over top of the entire surface of my paper, which I'm doing mine on artist trading cards, which I do quite a bit. They save me time. I can put them in a binder and have a little mini portfolio. And if I want, I can always trade them. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going over top of some of these lines, cleaning them up a little bit. After you erase the pencil lines, a lot of times you'll see where you missed a spot where there's a gap in the line, or maybe you went over too far and there's a little stray piece of line hanging out there. You could also go over this and darken it up more if you wanted to. You could make it a thicker line. This is a fairly thin pen that I'm outlining with, so you could always go in and thicken it up a little bit if you wanted to, just by going over it multiple times and shifting off to the side a bit. You could darken it up in the areas where you know there would be heavy shadows. But we're also going to use our markers when we color this to add some shadows and darker areas too. So I'm going to grab some markers and I'll be back. Okay, so I got my markers. What I do is I test them on these little scrap pieces of paper that are left over after I cut out my artist trading cards. And then I cut those down and I have them to try out my markers to make sure they're close enough in color. So I have 3. I have a light brown, a medium brown, and a dark brown. So that's going to work for this entire drawing. You could do more. I think you should at least have 2 markers for everything you do. And these are all alcohol-based markers. And you do not have to use all the same brands. They just all need to be alcohol markers. And of course you could use pastels or color pencils or paint or whatever you want to do. But what you want to do is work in smaller sections if you want to make sure that you can blend your colors together. Because what I like to do, and this is a personal preference, you don't have to do yours this way, but this is how I do mine, is I like to blend these colors into one another and soften up these edges. And you do that by using colors that are similar and then working while they're wet and going back over this edge with either a colorless blender or a lighter marker. I don't use the colorless blenders too much. Most sets of markers that you get do come with the colorless blenders. I really don't use them only because I already have these markers in my hand and I'm working back and forth with them anyway, so it feels more natural to just go ahead and use what I already have instead of adding another marker to the mix. But again, personal preference, you should try both. I tried using the colorless blender and I don't know, it feels like it kind of messes up my workflow a little bit, I guess. So now I'm going to move on to the eye. And like I said, you want to make sure you're working in small sections to keep the paper wet. Once that alcohol evaporates, your markers aren't going to blend the same. So you need to make sure you're working while that alcohol from the markers has not evaporated. So I'm going to just keep doing this, working back and forth between colors. And then, so what I have are my 3 markers, which are my light, my mid-tone, and my dark. And I'm just going to keep going back and forth the same way until I fill the whole thing in. And I'm looking at the values between the different areas, darkening up if I feel like I need to darken something up. Obviously you can't go lighter, without starting that way. You can go darker, but you can't go lighter on this. But the most important thing is that if you want to soften up those edges between your different markers, you have to work while the paper's still wet. So it can be tempting to color the whole thing in real fast, because if you know you're going to have that light color in most of it, it can be tempting to just go through and lay that down into the whole drawing. But then once you do that, when you go back and try to blend, you're gonna have a hard time because it's not gonna blend. And if you get pulled away, like right now, I know if I get pulled away for something, or if I run out of time this morning, then I can stop right here and pick back up later, and it's not gonna hurt anything. Where if you fill in a bunch of areas thinking you're going to get to them right away, and then you get called away for something, or you run out of time, then you're going to be in trouble, because you are not going to be able to get those colors to blend like you want. So just be patient. Enjoy the process. Art should feel relaxing and comfortable and therapeutic for you, so don't get too hung up on all the details and everything being perfect and end up taking all the enjoyment out of it. That's definitely not what we're going for. So I'm just adding in these darker markers where there's going to be shadows. And then we can go back later and darken up these outlines if we want. If I want to put some darker underneath the nose, there would definitely be a nice shadow there. And for the shadows, you wouldn't have to blend the shadows in. You could let the shadows be a harder edge. But I think it looks better to blend stuff together. I like how it looks better. And you could get even a darker marker. I don't love that the dark is not quite as dark as I want it to be. I want my darkest shadows to be darker than my mid values, and they're a little too close for my liking. So I think I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. There's not a whole lot more I can say about the process here. I think I've explained as much as I can. So I am going to go ahead and time lapse the rest of this, and I will be back with you when I'm done adding in the color. I got all the brown tones added in there. The last step is which is optional, you can add, I like using a white jelly roll. You can add in just, some touches of white highlights here and there. I typically will add in some white, mostly because it breaks up those big areas of color, breaks up those blocks a little bit. But like I said, this is optional. Another thing that you could do for this type of drawing, since we want it to look like it's carved out of wood, you could add some grain lines, the wood grain. You could add some of that. Again, that's optional. You could leave it as is and not add any of the white or the wood grain, or you could add one or the other. You could add both. Entirely up to you. These are all just the choices you need to make. There's really no right or wrong choice here. It's all just a matter of personal preference, the look you're going for. And again, this is why I love doing these on the artist trading cards, because typically what I'll do is I'll make a series of drawings and I can experiment and try some different things out, and I can make my decision more informed of what I like and what I don't like. So you might add some grain lines and then feel like it sort of ruined the drawing, but then you know that, and you know that for the next time. Same thing with the highlights. You could do the highlights a certain way one time and not like how it turned out, but then you know that, and that gives you more understanding and more knowledge for your future artwork. So just trying some different things out. Sometimes they turn out the way we expected them to, and sometimes they don't, but again, that's how we learn. We want to not put so much pressure on the outcome, but on the process and the enjoyment we get out of it. So I hope you like this video, and I hope you feel inspired to make some of your own tiki masks, and I will see you in the next video. Happy creating! Well, how'd you do? Did you make some of your own artwork? I hope you did. I hope you felt encouraged and motivated to start some of your own work. And I hope you feel inspired to keep working on your art. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like and make sure you subscribe so you can see more videos from us when they get posted. I'll talk to you soon. Happy creating!